Our next part of the session is going to be a panel discussion, and the moderator of the panel is Jasleen Wariach. Jasleen Wariach is a landscape architect and urbanist interested in designing and promoting a sustainable vision of urban life. She did graduation in architecture from Jadavpur University, Kolkata, and masters in landscape architecture from SPA Delhi. Her firm, Jasleen Wariach Landscape Architecture, based in Delhi NCR, is a leading landscape practice for over 25 years. And it has been working on a wide range of projects across India that are contextually relevant from both ecological and cultural perspectives. She also teaches design to students of landscape architecture and has served as the honorary chairperson of Delhi chapter of the Indian Society of Landscape Architects. Please welcome Jasleen Wariach and as a moderator of the panel.
Thank you, Madhu, and thank you, Sujata and Adarsha. It was I think one forgets that you're part of the event, and it's enormous learning, I must say, and very deep. I'm carried away by the passion that you put in your work and your research, you know, guys. Very good. So, can you hear me? Thank you, DIARC, firstly, for organizing this event that has given us landscape architects, urban designers, planners from this city to come together on a common platform to understand our shared concerns as we hope to lead our cities towards a more sustainable and viable future. Thank you to the IIA Northern Chapter for creating a format that has brought 3 independent professional organizations of the built environment, ISOLA, IIA, IUDI on a single forum, and for putting together the energies, logistics that make Buzz a happening and a relevant annual event every year. Thank you. Special thank you to Archana. The panel that we have here today is one that brings together passionate design professionals, each with a deep understanding, experience in working in the urban realm, whether as a designer or an administrator. Our topic today is cities for people. I'm just reading out, it's easier for me. Much of it is a repeat of what you will hear through the panel discussion and what Sujata and Adarsha have already cared, but just laying the foundation for our discussion. So we are confronted by an existential crisis. Between now and 2050, our planet will welcome an additional 3 billion people, and nearly 70% of this global population will live in cities. We cannot sustain this growth while continuing on a path of environmental degradation, climate change, and biodiversity loss, as it represents a threat to our very existence. Unless effective action is taken soon, our cities will heat up to a devastating degree over the course of this century. Unable to keep pace with the extent of climate change and rapid urbanization of the last few decades, cities in India are unfortunately failing on quality of life on many fronts. On one hand, as Sujata and Adarsha have both shown, that India has had a long and varied tradition of meticulously built cities. And though it was in the British colonial era that we saw the introduction of planned cities like Delhi, Kolkata, and Mumbai. Post-independence, things changed somewhat. And interesting to know why that has happened. India's long-standing neglect of its cities could be rooted in the Gandhian ideology, as well as its electoral exigency. Mohandas Gandhi, in some ways India's founding father, preached that the soul of India lives in its villages, a view that gives cities a poor footing in independent India from the start. The Constitution sets out powers for the federal government and for states, but hardly mentions cities. Municipal authorities are therefore weak, and it is state governments that are mainly responsible for urban policy making. The core problem, perhaps, is about a lack of autonomy. The chief executive of any Indian city is an unelected bureaucrat answerable to the state government. Mayors are indirectly elected and have short terms and few powers. Municipal authorities in Bangalore, India's IT hub, and other cities do not control its water, sanitation, policing, public transport, or urban planning. There is therefore nobody you can throw out of office if the city is broken. Burgeoning cities of India need robust long-term plans to prepare quality services and sustainable infrastructure for everyone. But at least 40% of India's capital cities lack active spatial plans. The problem is more acute in smaller cities. No state has mandated uniform street design standards for city roads or has a provision to prevent the approval of projects violating their plans. Few have ways to penalize violations. How do we create cities that support the well-being of the residents and contribute to a better world? How do we build a resourceful city that manages to be ecologically and economically sustainable? An accessible city built for diversity, inclusion, equality, a shared city that encourages a sense of community, collaboration, and togetherness. A city designed for social interaction through shared facilities, public spaces, co-working, co-living spaces, transportations. A resilient city, resilient to climate change, a safe city that fosters physical and mental well-being through access to healthcare and green spaces. A desirable, livable city that is a pleasure to be in, designed on a human scale, making everything accessible within a 15-minute walk. Nurturing a vibrant public life with access to nature, culture, art, and activities, as well as appealing public spaces for relaxation, well-being, and learning. All this is very well and idealistic. Then again, we have to deal with our Gurgaons, which come as a bundle along with our Bandwaris and our Ghazipur landfills. Without a doubt, Gurgaon is the kind of city urban planners can learn from on how not to build a city. The Millennium City, with its chrome buildings and neon signs, lend nicely to that label, but it also hides the fact that Gurgaon is fighting for basics such as water and power. So while cities are at the heart of the problem, and therefore perhaps also therein lies the heart of the solution. So let's invite our panelists and get them to share their ideas on how to make better livable cities. Thank you.
Thanks, Jasleen, to bring in the context, relevance, and the tone for the panel discussion today. So our panelists that I would like to invite are three of the they're in the from the over with us today. Mr. Purushottam Uttawar is an eminent architect and urban planner with 45 years of experience in the field of urban development. He retired as an additional commissioner planning from DDA, where he was instrumental in the preparation of master plan for Delhi 2001, Delhi 2021, and draft master plan for 2041. He also headed UTPEC at DDA that notified the first transit-oriented development policy in India. He was also involved in planning and development of million-plus subsidies of Rohini and Dwarka in Delhi and led many multidisciplinary teams for the preparation of the master plans and development plans for various cities. Thank you, sir, to be here with us today. Please welcome Purushottam Uttawar as one of our first panelists. Then we have D. Vishwanathan as We also called him fondly DV. Over 30 years of experience and currently leads RSP Design Consultants NCR office at Gurgaon, where for almost 2 decades he has been involved in projects of multiple types of works, including commercial office, retail, hospitality, group housing, master plans, university and corporate campuses, and aviation, technical blocks, and many others. Earlier, he worked in Kuwait and New Delhi. Vishwanathan completed his B.Arch and M.Arch urban design from both SPA Delhi. Please welcome D. Vishwanathan. Then we have Sandeep Roy, who is an architect who completed his B.Arch from Jadavpur University, Kolkata, and Masters in Building Engineering and Management from SPA Delhi. He has 3 decades of experience with a portfolio of numerous landmark townships, buildings, and interior projects. Earlier as a project director in RSP Design Consultant, country head at Studio U+A, and COO of Nelson India, Sandeep is currently the Senior VP and Head of Central Design and Engineering Team at DLF Limited. Looking after Pan-India project performance, setting up organization, design and engineering standards, and guiding technology transformation for the company. He is also a visiting faculty at the Department of Building Engineering and Management in SPA. Sandeepta is also a dear friend of mine and senior to me for the last 34 years. Please welcome Sandeep Roy at the panel. We would also like to welcome Sujata, who needs no introduction further, to be joining us with a panel together. We'd also like to have Adarsha Kapoor, urban designer, today with the panel. And over to you, Jasleen, for the session.
Hello? Yeah. Am I audible? Yeah. Thank you. So, Madhup, nice to remind me. I'm doing the counting also. So, Sandeep and I go back some 40 odd years, nearly so. Of course, he just looks 40 years old, but actually, let's just say. And ditto with DV, you know. So it's a great forum to kind of connect with these people. I would not have imagined that we would be on a panel together. And so I'm starting with the first question because it's like fresh off my mind. Sujata, with what you started. Just something, it's not that, let's say, it has to do with the matter of the heart about the city. So when you mentioned emblematic cities, I just want to ask you, has the concept of an emblematic city, is it something of the past for us? Like, let's talk about, say, Delhi. So what makes a city great? How did a grand city like the Delhi of Shahjahanabad, or even the planned geometry of Lutyens Delhi, devolve into the zones of South Delhi, of Greater Kailash, you know, which are beautiful in their own ways, but perhaps lacking meaningful character? Do you kind of want to explain?
I would say that Delhi has the potential because it has so many historic layers, and it has that energy of the new, job market where all people want to, even the, the IAS aspirants, why they were in Delhi was because they don't get the right teachers in other places. So there is a lot of intellectual energy which is happening in Delhi. So it has the potential, but I think it started losing its way from early 2000s when the flyover revolution, signal free corridors started happening, and we started cutting up our cities into parcels. And before that, it was more easier to go from one parcel to another, and we are kind of cutting it further. So that, but it has the potential because the historic layer is completely unmatchable, and the energy of the people in the city.
I know you're a Delhi girl, so you'd not want any criticism, but I would say that could it be one of the reasons is that we've never tried to, when we're looking at cities holistically, we never try to identify the one character, its soul as such. So when we are designing cities or say imagining cities, you know, holistically, whether it is through street planning, so what do we want Delhi to be? Or what do we want a Mumbai to be? If it's something that is a core, I just want to, you know, quote something to you. Like, you remember a couple of years back, they would talk about X and Y city in India becoming the next Shanghai or whatsoever. But I'm still waiting for that next Shanghai or next Mumbai, which is, you know, the go-to city, which Barcelona is. And they've all been through their low points. So why aren't we transforming into, you know?
So I don't think Delhi should become either Shanghai or it has to be
No,
Delhi.
it has its own
you know.
identity, but what is it really?
So what is lacking is in the city right now is that we are not engaging with the good stuff which is there.
Okay.
Like Adarsha and me, we showed Srinagar when we are in the city. We actually, and when we go wherever to the Rajasthan cities or so we engage with the city in a different way, and the feeling that we get is undefinable, maybe metaphysical, but the feeling that we get is with the spaces which are there and what they do to us. So that is slowly is getting depleted from Delhi because our maybe, heart is in the right place, but mind is saying about more cars and whatever. So
Flesh is weak.
yeah.
All right. Anybody wants to add to that, Adarsha?
I call Delhi the spoilt orphan brat. So the father has a lot of money.
Okay.
No one wants to take ownership. And the city is going haywire in any direction. So no one wants to fix the problems of Delhi.
And it's sad because it's like, it's very rich. You know, there's a monument in every gully and nukkad, you know, and Divi lived in Sheikh Sarai, remember that? Yes. It had so many tiny monuments which are all now going to the ruins. Okay.
Exactly that. And moreover, Delhi, I think, is a true example of how transformation has taken place over many years. I think if you don't recognize that as a city it has a character and control the transformation, we'll just keep building over and over and again. In a way, the history seems to be repeating in Delhi. I know where I lived, it doesn't look like what it was when I lived there. Completely transformed over the last few years, and has been constantly doing so.
Sandeep, you want to say something? Okay.
I just wanted to say, I also, when I moved into Delhi, I was also staying in Sheikh Sarai, so it's it's all in the close circle. One of the problems, I was just hearing Adarsha and your presentation also. One of the things I believe is between these three cities, I'll be very frank, I'm not very conversant with Delhi. I have mostly worked in the suburban cities of Gurgaon and Noida. I think the problems are threefold. I may be wrong about Delhi, to be very frank. In Delhi, there has been a bit too much control from the public sector and trying to do everything by themselves. In Noida, the public sector has done kind of the right thing by providing all the infrastructure, but the private sector did not participate as much or isn't being as successful as it should have been with that kind of infrastructure. And Gurgaon is completely the other way around, where the government just puts up its hand and says, I'm not going to do anything. Everything is on the private sector and that model. So we have three very different models in our vicinity, and it's a very interesting study for you urban designers, to be very frank, on how these are performing and what's the good or bad. Thank you.
So just continuing in the same tone, Mr. Uttawar, if we were to look at more people-centric cities that Adarsha showed us, and Sujata talked about, like Jaipur and Ahmedabad, and what are the key takeaways that our modern cities, whether even Gandhinagar or Gift City or our default punching bag Gurgaon, what would you say what are they really missing out when compared to those cities? What would you say?
I think we started with a very good presentation. First, Sujata talked about evolution of the city. The people came to the river, they settled down for farming, then the settlement trade, etc. Then we became the cities were people centric, no rules, regulations, or any form kind of a thing. Then we moved over to the presentation of Adarsh, where we're trying to bring in some order into the planning, etc. And what happened with evolution of cities, their industrialization, etc., the control of city has gone into the hands of generalists. It's no more in the hands of public architects or creators, but then it is a very generalist people and like administrator. And I'm self urban planner, architect planner, but I call planners also generalist.
Okay.
So time is there now. Very briefly, I will deal with this again. So this domain needs to be reclaimed by the designers.
Okay.
Yeah. And one example is if we start with Jaipur. Jaipur is the oldest example of transit-oriented development. It's not something we are learning from the West. The architect Vidyadhar came from Bengal, all the way stayed there, acclimatized himself, tried to understand the climate, the people, discussions with the councils, king and everything. And we have a wonderful, beautiful Jaipur city. And Sujata has also presented some very good slides about Jaipur, which is generally not available here and there. Then next example is Chandigarh. Jaipur is a very people-centric city. I stayed there, walled city for a year in my service. I still remember those days. People are so hospitable. The entire terraces are connected on the festival, on some kind of a thing. It's like a one mohalla. And then Chandigarh is a very people-centric city. He talks about people, etc. And after that, we can take example of Sydney Opera House, where the architect had just drawn few sketches and it was thrown out. And then he said nothing doing, and I think Miss Vandro came from America for a jury, and he said, you show me rejected entries also. And he took out these sketches and said, you build this. And now Sydney Opera House, probably every student of architecture or practicing architect must visit it. It's like a mecca for architecture. So then it is coming to the Srinagar Smart City. Anuj Malhotra is a landscape architect. Again, it's very people-centric city. Not, I think the Lal Chowk, Srinagar Lal Chowk, I will give the most important thing. It has eliminated the negativity. The negativity with Lal Chowk was there, and all kind of things were happening. Now people come there to take a family selfie, the locals and everybody. So that kind of creativity and individualistic ownership will bring people-centric cities.
So, so like just kind of the comparison, Divi, between say a Jaipur and say any other modern area, whether it is, if you're looking at Delhi, then it's Noida and Ghaziabad and Gurgaon that we can talk about. So I think that every time development happens in this, or there's an expansion, there's no attempt whatsoever to create any character. It is all to create a character. It's all about, I guess, selling land, selling real estate, and you know, it's a the whole deal is completely commercial. So that intent is just not there. So who do you think should put it in place? You know, we know the answers. We have people who can do it, but they aren't coming to us.
No, I mean, Adarsha spoke about form-based codes. I think those are definitely implementable, but I find the issue is that who controls it, and where does this happen from? you take a city like Noida, at least the entire infrastructure is controlled by the government, so they know what they're doing. Opposed to Gurgaon, where infrastructure is not in the control of either the city government nor in the state government. In fact, it is economically driven city where money that is extracted then goes to the state and doesn't come back. So even if you did have a form-based control, you will realize that the state is not going to implement because there is no MyBab for that particular city. And as long as you don't have a MyBab for a city, it's not going to happen. Delhi, I think, has some advantage. The disadvantage, I think it's too large for it to have a singular agency like DDA or anyone. But at least it has some institutional framework from where the city can be controlled. Completely lacking in a place like Gurgaon. So it's very difficult, even if you were to accept a form-based system, to actually implement it in a place. You already see a lot of that happening in private development of large nature. I mean, you take a 1,000-acre or a 500-acre or a 200-acre development, the form-based codes are inherent to it. I mean, as architects, as master planners, when we do propose it in the same way. But at a larger city level, very difficult. I don't want to appear pessimistic, but it's very tough if the money is not in the control of the city itself.
Yeah, please.
So partly agree to what DV is saying and partly not. Partly in the sense it's very difficult to control the form of the whole city or give it a singular character. Every part is unique. So yes, I agree that a city cannot have a unique character all across. But there are processes and there are examples. Let me first talk about examples. So Sandeep, Vatika, India Next. The architect thought of a character of that area. In bits and pieces, Rahejas, Lodhas, the kind of development that they do in Mumbai, those areas have certain character. The problem...
Hiranandani, definitely.
Yeah, and you can find multiple examples all across India of these kind of area-based character examples. The administration, the planning agencies have also learned from it, by the way. Now UP is insisting that for TOD areas, zonal development plans be built, and in the zonal development plan, the authorities have to issue urban design guidelines. It's enshrined in the TOD Act. It's an act. And for all those areas, the urban design guidelines would be kind of form-based codes. Similarly, in Delhi, the process of influence zone plan preparation for TOD areas, ironically, only TOD kind of areas started with this whole notion of having a character, because TOD also talks about certain kind of a built form in an urban environment. But over a period of time, we will realize, and that's a natural trajectory, all different areas. Say, for example, a heritage precinct. Ahmedabad is now thinking of form-based codes for the historic city. Srinagar, the downtown area can definitely have something similar, form-based codes. So each area would have to be looked into differently. You know, the problem happened when we as professionals thought that unified bylaws are the best for our country, which is where we made a mess. Because we mixed everything into a norm called unified bylaws, and then we messed it up. Now there is a growing realization that, okay, unified bylaws can control a few parameters of development, but each area needs to have their own sets of uniqueness. Let's call them uniqueness. And that uniqueness can come through form-based codes, urban design guidelines. There's very little talk about it. It's all happening within agencies, in certain plans. But now I think these forums like this and other forums need to talk about it. Because this is a natural trajectory, like it or not, the development process will move in that direction.
A question I have for you, because we are talking about form-based codes itself. Adarsha, to you, do we understand that for it to be an effective instrument and say as a sort of like a replacement for bylaws in one sense, a general guideline. So would the first part of that exercise be to map out all our areas, city by city? That's a huge exercise and it can be done. It'll give employment to a lot of architects and junior architects, you know.
Yes, you are right. In fact, when we were preparing these guidelines for Indian Railways and even for the national NIUA, the first thing we did was we went down to the cities and station areas and we studied them, because our perception of form-based codes come from the American learning, which controls everything about the environment. And that's not the kind of form-based codes we need right now. We've achieved certain quantum of development. We have necessary built stock. We have necessary housing and commercial. Now our users also want certain kind of improvement in that. And those improvements are like, I want park-looking apartment. I want lake-looking, lakefront apartment. Now the users are getting conscious about that, which means the first thing form-based codes need to do is at least add this layer into development regulations. Once we've achieved this, we have extra money, we will demand for a certain kind of an architectural character. This is a natural trajectory. Now, in this context, if we look at development norms, we don't have to change everything, because the development norms are good to control volumes. How much can one build? So ground coverage, FAR can tell you that, okay, you can build this much of floor area. They don't talk about the quality of environment that it is creating. We need to now think about the quality of environment, and especially in the context of a precinct and areas.
My question was actually a little different from that. My question is this need for mapping information. Yours is a qualitative mapping that you feel that you need to do a qualitative mapping and not a quantitative alone. In fact, like as landscape architects, we often suffer from the absence of the latter, where you are instructed to begin work on a project on which accurate survey drawings are not available, or perhaps no one is aware what is the kind of road sections that are kind of available adjacent to the plot. So mapping could be one way for us to know where we stand, and that we need to map our cities very accurately.
Yes, that's the difficult part, because no one wants to go down to the city and spend time over there. When the projects in Srinagar were happening, it was very difficult to get resources to go and work in downtown. Walk in downtown, see the city, go to ghats and identify ghats was the toughest. Even the residents of Srinagar who had moved out of Srinagar didn't want to go back. We are facing similar problems in Northeast. No one wants to go down to the city and study them.
Interesting. What about local people? Not trained enough, probably. Not trained.
Delhi, for example, gives you a lot of exposure. Someone who's come to Delhi, because most architects and planners and designers want to go to these mega cities. Mumbai, Gurgaon, Delhi, Bangalore. They don't want to work in their local areas. If they're working in their local areas, they're rather sticking to architecture. They're not getting to the urban design side. It's probably difficult there to push for this, which is where I feel organizations like IIA, IUDI, ITPI should actually encourage.
Also through institutions, maybe through institutions. Educational institutions can step in. They have the workforce. Sir, you wanted to, Mr. Uttawar?
You said form-based codes to replace the building bylaws. No, it's not that. Building bylaws are required because that assures something minimum. And building bylaws also have flexibility and the provisions, built-in provisions, like large district centers. Large district centers, earlier we used to call it architectural controls, Nehru Place or Bhikaji Kama Place. Now those architecture controls were just two-dimensional, elevation and the plan. But form-based codes is slightly more. It creates public spaces, how should be people would like to move, maybe the minimum distance walking. So that kind of a provision is there in building bylaws that assures minimum. Earlier, without building bylaws, there was a chaos everywhere. So now we need to go one step ahead of building bylaws. Building bylaws will have inbuilt provision for form-based codes. I hope Adarsha agrees.
So it's an additional layer of information on the...
Just one more point, because I spent almost 50 years in Delhi's planning. The first city we planned was for this Rohini. That was socialistic India, small plots for everybody. So we built small plots and on a large roads, and immediately got converted into commercial. So when we built Dwarka, we thought large group housing plots should be on the main road. And then we see now, after 7 p.m., Dwarka is dead. There is no life. So then we came to the mixed land use. So that is how the planning or architecture should evolve. And that is the responsibility of institutions and seniors to do that.
So talking about TOD, we mentioned it in our discussion. So TOD policies, you know, they aim to make it easier for people to live and work together by proposing higher densities. So how do you think, Divi, this is a topic that I think that, you know, is close to your heart. How do you think it's panned out in, you know, in Delhi, in Gurgaon? What is your view on it? How effective do you think the policy is?
I can't speak much about Delhi. I think there are experts who can talk about it. But I know that at least in Gurgaon, TOD is neither transit nor is it oriented. It's just pure development and nothing else. And the idea that you live close to your place of work, yeah, in enclaves it actually works. It's not bad. But what the TOD policy has done is it's given a free run for higher FARs and higher densities. But what I'm observing now through my practical experiences, the densities are actually coming down. And that is because all these TOD policies have been focused on roads which have excellent connectivity with the larger cities, right? Whether it is Delhi or other places. So they are really car-centric and therefore bring in more money into those plots of land where the requirement for density is actually lesser. My experience is that the densities are actually reducing with TOD because of the sizes of units and apartments are getting bigger and bigger. And there is a trick to it. I mean, I don't want to take people's time here to explain to it, but there are bylaw issues that is allowing us to actually build lower density than what the TOD intended to do in the first place. I think I was talking to others earlier.
Trade secret, right?
Yeah, it's not trade secret. There's nothing trade secret about it. It is open. Everybody knows about it. You can see the projects already coming up. But Adarsh was earlier mentioning while we were talking outside that should we even have now a public transport, because that hasn't happened. So all the TOD development in Gurgaon is not on public transport. Let's remember that. The public transport has to be now conceived in those areas. Now, question is, do you need it? Because it is so car-centric, the cost of living is so high and the cost of apartments is so high. I can't imagine anybody using public transport living in those apartments at all. It is not possible. I mean, my figure says that unless you earn 2.5 lakh rupees, you cannot live on any TOD development anywhere in Gurgaon. It's impossible. And that I think is a very high income by any standards in those areas.
So that's where this issue of accountability, that it's, because I do agree that when a policy is put forth, I'm sure it's almost always done with the best intentions, but somehow we don't have the mechanism to review the policy, you know, in 10 years' time, like if that is, Adarsha?
Let me just add. Gurgaon is not bad because they keep reviewing the policy every few. It's not as bad as you make it. It's not. It's not cast in stone. No bylaw is cast in stone. Nothing is cast in stone. There is a constant review. Even as we speak now, there is a review going on the bylaws as we speak. So it is not so static as much as people think it is.
Just to add on to that and put the right perspective, Gurgaon TOD policy had 20 amendments till now and more in the happening.
More in the happening.
The problem with Gurgaon is that the development happened first. Planning, urban design, public transit, all of them are trying to catch up. And the development itself has become so expensive and accommodates only a certain class of people that a lot of these kind of initiatives are becoming financially and technically unviable. Say, for example, water management in Gurgaon. You know, you have these areas which are 100 crores worth apartment costs. You can't change them because these are huge revenue earners for the city. So, you know, we are talking about an animal that we've created, a dinosaur that we've created, and now we want to make the dinosaur smaller.
To make it, to domesticate the
But
dinosaur.
just to add, within every enclave, of course, you have a great ability to create nice design. There's enough for public precinct that happens within these parcels. But you could imagine them as one city, another one, another one, another one, connected by an expressway. but not as a character that is tying up all of them together.
Yeah, you can't really call them cities. They're just plotted development. Let's just call it that, all right? So, Sujata, talking about water now, since water's been touched upon, is this a time? This
Before
a
we
hint?
talk about water, which I've told Adarsha to also speak, which he hasn't, is form-based codes basically brings the buildings closer to the streets and takes the parking and whatever inside. Now what is happening is the parking and the roads are so wide and the parking is outside. So the sense of scale of the city is completely going. Even if Noida is planned and Gandhinagar is planned, they've planned around such wide roads that the scale of city has completely gone. So a place like New York with 100-floor buildings can work on 30-meter right of way. So that is where the form-based codes, make sense. Yeah. So I just wanted to add that.
Thanks, Sujata. So talking about water, so how water-wise are we really when we are planning, and the resilience to flood, drought, challenges of growing water scarcity are issues that our cities are generally not able to cope with. We are managing a couple of crises in every part of NCR. I think Noida is saved because we are closer to the river. So, the natural drainage is towards, otherwise we are no better really. So, what do you feel that how should we tackle this?
So water is one topic I can talk about the whole day. But basically, water has its own character. Like it can really be wild during the monsoon or whatever time, and it can be going to crevices and places which so we need to, we have the technology now. As at city levels, we have been doing in different places, including Chennai, even in Srinagar, about the subsurface water, like where is the water kind of stopping, which are the lowest points, the contour levels. So that is where, all of us should engage with the mapping, which is available now, and do simulations. And then do, for example, if you look at the area around Ames, that has the GPRA colony called East Kidwai Nagar. Now the Sarojini Nagar is going to be built. Ames is going to be built. So we are going to have lots and lots of basements out there. But there should have been an urban designer and landscape architects come in before these developments would happen. But again, we are going backwards. First, the architects are doing these enclaves, then the water will come on the roads, and then we'll cry. So like water and urban design and form-based has to come one step before actually giving away the plotted areas to different developers or architects or whatever.
It will need a lot of negotiating with the, developers and with agencies. Even the owners of the land are reluctant to lose FSI because, if you have to kind of let go of land because you need to build retention ponds, that is a huge negotiation.
So that is where the bylaws come in. Why have we given basements as free? I don't understand. What is, when we know that basements is free parking or free commercials, then people will make no. The developers will take the maximum bang for the buck. So that is where, like, I have the pet peeve about bylaws. And form-based codes is this thing against boundary walls. Our cities become so unsafe at night, especially for women, because of those boundary walls. And then you have the setback inside, which people use for parking. So it's like planning completely gone wrong.
So, sorry, excuse me.
I disagree with her that the basements free is a very odd concept. It is not. It is not. In fact, if you look at some parts of the city, I would actually encourage that basement parking be made free, so that the cars that are parked on the road can actually get inside the basement. I would actually argue for the fact that you charge people on the road much more than what we have today. The parking charges on the road must be really very high, and the basements adjacent to it must be free in order for those cars to go in.
I'll add one point on the basements on this. Sorry, this side of the panel is from the private sector, right? So one of the things we are doing in these complexes that we are designing, DV is big time involved with that also, is that, see, basements have another, and the whole topic is livability. One of the things we are doing is we are taking the entire car movement in these complexes into the basement level, or if it's a podium level where you are doing the parking. But we are taking the cars as quickly as possible into these levels, keeping your streets free for either a few visitors parking, I understand that, or for our children to play. In one of the housings that both Adarsha and I were involved with, and he actually showed a picture. Thankfully, he didn't criticize it. He said good things about it. I was a little worried. Yeah, I lived that one out. So over there, in the last 2008 to now, 2 kids has died because of speeding. Something we tried to do there to slow down, and I really hate road humps. I simply think they're potholes overturned. I mean, if you hate potholes, you should hate road humps. They do no good either to your car or to slow down, to be very frank. So end of the day, at least the saving grace, and in future we have been doing this, that try to get the cars to the basements as fast as possible. Now, I'll take one more point to what Sujata was pointing. Now, coming back to the water issue, the thing is, a lot of these A-grade developments do not spare any cost on pumping or getting the water out or water locking from inside their complexes. So where do the pumps take the water out when the road outside, the public road outside my complex is already under 2 feet water? Where does the water go? So from outside to inside, it's all waterlogged. Outside, the car from my next neighborhood trying to drive by is upset. And inside, our own neighbors are upset that it's water, and what kind of design do you do? So in the end, I think it has to be a hand-holding between the public and the private developers, and that kind of a combined policy or combined bylaws, I have been hearing about this, is extremely important to get our cities livable.
Actually, I just
Just
like
want to add
a-
one
okay.
bit about the parking before she snatches it from me. He's right about the fact that in almost 90% of the work that we are designing today, the clear instruction design brief is make the car disappear. So almost every project that we design today, the moment you enter, the car gets into the basement. It's now a given brief to us, make the car disappear out of the ground. So car, yes, but it's also now seen as detrimental to the environment that you're trying to create.
Divi, I think that the point here is more about making it easier for cars. We are giving them a nice little palace home below this luxury apartment. So it's easier to own a car. Overall, our culture and our cities and our people. I mean, you know, so the problem with cities, quite often we are talking about design, for instance. But I feel that it is beyond design. It has to do with attitudes, and the attitudes is that of the city and the people who live it and the people who govern it. If you promote cars, you know, by telling them, hey, come and now I'll just give you an easy, you just have to go down there. So it makes life easy. So they own larger and larger cars. Somebody was talking, when Sujata was talking about housing, retrofitting or redevelopment happening in Bombay, where they're allocating 3 cars per flat. There are cities, this is no Copenhagen at the end of the day, where people are doing away with car ownerships. Ultimately, that has to be our goal at some point, you know.
So may I say something? So basically the car does not disappear. The car does not disappear, it goes somewhere, it goes to the basement. So we have to see in terms of the water, what it is doing. Now what they are saying that 2 feet of water is on the road, and if they are going to make basements one after another, where will the water go? And after that DLF, not Sandeep sir, but DLF proposed those underpasses. So the water cannot even go down because the underpasses are there. So see, the thing is that developers have done very good, thinking about for the cars. Again, what you just said. But we, this thing, we have forgotten about water, and now it's like Venice, Gurgaon.
So the entire panel promised me not to mention a company name on this, but anyway, jokes apart. But before the last discussion, Divi and I, after the mic went on, we were talking about it's right now, it is unavoidable to have the car. And the question is why? We have to address that to start with. Is there, I mean, all these TOD discussions that went on, is there a real public transport that exists even? We have the roads. Who are riding the roads? I mean, I have been extremely disappointed at the failure of BRTS in Delhi. I was a huge supporter of it. The bus rapid system that was introduced. There were some design flaws, yes, which could have been corrected, yes, but I almost thought that it was abolished from the pressure of the car owners who had smaller road to drive by. While the problem I have with that is take cities like New York or somewhere, you almost inevitably make it difficult for the cars to drive so that people opt for existing public transport. The problem is there is no existing public transport. So,
just to add on to that, yes, I agree that public transport has to come in first. Let's forget about Delhi NCR, because everything that can possibly go wrong has gone wrong in Delhi NCR. But let's talk about other cities. Say, for example, Kolkata has a wonderful public transport system. They have imagined TOD next to the public transit system, and they anyways have a lot of focus on footpaths. Same with Mumbai. They have very good public transport systems, still improving it. Now, the thing that we need to discuss is how long will we keep talking about parking? We've been talking about parking almost half of our time. We haven't yet talked about water. And Vatika City, for example, has a very good example in the way they've used the basements. Vatika City has an example where you have apartments in the basement. Correct me if I'm wrong, Sandeep. Am I right? Yes. There are innovative ways where architects can find solutions, but I think our priorities were wrong. Our priorities were always matching the numbers. We have to accommodate parking. We have a lot of area. Let's just accommodate. Kolkata, for example, doesn't have enough area. They don't have an option. They can't go beyond ground. They build multi-level car parks above the ground. They don't eat up the space underneath. So wherever you have a building footprint where you anyways are eating up on the permeability of land, there it's fine to have parking underneath because you've anyways killed the permeability of land. But if there are areas which are open to sky in your plot, there at least we could have planned for recharge zones, etc. I think our priorities for a long time were wrong. And we never discussed this with the agencies, and we also never asked the agencies to fix these things. So we all went with the flow.
One of the things I liked in your presentation is between the residential built form and the commercial built form and the various typologies that we talk of, we have forgotten the public space for some reason. That is what is being eaten up by all these cars and everything that you are talking about is what my takeaway from both your presentations were, and totally agree with it. Talking of TOD, can I just jump one question to the panel also here? We have been debating about something called walk to work for a long time. That basically it's not literally walking to work, but your workplace is very closer to your where you live, and that is where the TOD should have been helping. Divi pointed out rightly that it is not, it is going the other way around. In your studies in the other cities, do you think, especially in North India, weather is a factor? that we are not getting more pedestrians or cyclists, and there is a dependency, as compared to where we see these concepts very successful in countries like Europe or even somewhere in North America.
So sorry to interrupt, but we have last 5 minutes, so I request you to please finish.
Just in a minute, should I answer this?
Mr. Uttawar, has been waiting.
In a minute, I had the lucky opportunity to go to 4 countries in Africa and study why people are walking or using public transport there or not. Interestingly, their climate is hotter than ours, and people were actually walking on the street. They didn't complain. Here also, our studies show that there are a lot of people who use public transport, walk, etc., but there is no infrastructure. So we force people to go away from public transit and walking facilities, and we push them to buy cars.
Adarsha, Mr. Uttawar.
As a professional, not from private or government, I am saying, we are just talking about first aid solutions. Now, probably we have to think in very, very different kind of things. If we do not have cars, if we do not have cars, then how we will work with it? But with car we have to live. Cars are must. So basement or covered space is required. And one point Sujata has made, they bring in architects and landscape architects later on. I will give the example of Germany. Germany, they have done away with environmental impact assessment. They call it spatial impact assessment. And the landscape architect is a team leader of it. No clapping from landscape architects? No clappings from landscape architects?
Yeah.
So what is they are doing, before the team assess the environment, not only cutting of trees, but species, birds, etc., etc. If there are basements are built, how much runoff water will be affected, etc. And if everything is green, then the okay is given. So we need to talk to government, we need to talk to the authorities and say, you please change the approach.
Exactly.
You change the approach, and then only everything will fall in a place.
In fact, like when, especially in cities like Bombay, where FSIs have suddenly gone up in the last couple of years, from 1.5 to as much as 27. Now they are everybody's happy. I've talked to architects because they say there's a lot of work and business for us, and the city is going to get multi-storied buildings, which it cannot with a 1.5 FSI. But there is never a proportionate discussion of allocating open spaces.
Yes.
My question is, you add, 1 lakh people in, more in one, patch of 1 hectare. What is the requirement for open space? Where will it be met with? It's not like Singapore where they say, your proportionate amount of land of your, whatever is your ground coverage, you need to build that up in open spaces across the floors. So we need to, perhaps what sir is suggesting maybe, that landscape architects need to, and urban designers and planners, we need to sit and reframe policies. Because, this need for open spaces, it's so simplistic, in fact, what Adarsha briefly mentioned, that we are talking a lot about cars, but we need oxygen. We need water and we need open spaces.
Yes.
We need footpaths, so let's get our focus a bit back on nature, and maybe, we can have better cities.
Can I just answer Mr. Roy's, I think BV, whoever asked this question about walkability in the North Indian cities. If you look at the Shahjahanabad area or whatever, they had made them walkable because of the
narrow
size
streets
and everything, it became walkable. So now the new planned cities of Noidas and the greater Noidas and all, the streets are so wide and you will be exposed to the elements of sun and everything. In Singapore, what they've done is, the policy is that you can have corridored space, the private developer builds it. So it's part of the form-based codes out there in Singapore. And they can make their corridors as per their wish, but it has to be made.
Accessible.
So you can go from one property to the other via a colonnaded walkway, which Adarsha also showed in some other city, which is happening in Delhi. But only part out here is that it is not continuous. or like if required in a wider street, we could have something like that.
So like,
So sorry to
just
interrupt, ma'am. I request the moderator to please wrap up the session in next 2 minutes, as
Yes.
we have other sessions also to go forward to.
Totally. We are just a minute away maybe from ending the session. I don't think we'll have the time to open the floor to questions. What about, I think at the end, if, we are kind of trying to pin the blame, build the cat, and, find answers and solutions. I feel it's governance rather, who governs the city. How do we govern it? Who implements policies? Who's the top man? Does he have the powers? Does she have the powers? Accountability. This multiplicity of agencies, nobody knows what they said. That TOD comment is, I think we need to kind of, it's an important thing that Divi said, that it's not about transport and it's not about orientation. So this thing of fixing responsibility may perhaps, that's where some of our answers lie. And it's not just with our, at the level of the building and design professional. Anyone wants to add a final line to, cap the discussion? And the audience wants to finish and move to the next session. Anyone wants to say one final word?
Just a final word is this, this wisdom has to be passed on, and probably we are working in too much of silos. Private sector is thinking about profit, but we have to think in terms of one earth, one livable planet. And as I said, we all need to talk to authorities, make them sense, and bring in again that creativity where there is a people-centric planning.
Thank you. So I think, Archana, our next format should have a person from the government on the panel, Or perhaps in part of the audience, not just one, maybe. Yes, please. Please, answer.
I think it's a very good thing that Jasleen has brought this up. And fundamentally, like every landscapist complains, they're always the last ones who come on the stage by the time everything is over. So that was those ones.
Whatever. All right. Thank you. Thank you, panel.